Every great transformation begins the moment you decide to stop looking around and start looking within. Most people spend their lives distracted, watching others, comparing, explaining, proving. But real power, it's built in silence. When you shift your focus away from the noise and put all your energy into growth, something incredible happens. You stop leaking energy into things that don't matter, and you start investing it into the one thing that does you. That's where your edge is. That's where your breakthrough lives. You don't need to announce your plans. You don't need validation. The moment you truly commit to growth, your actions become louder than any words you could ever say. While others are busy talking, you're building. While they're judging, you're evolving. And here's the truth. People may not notice at first. They may even doubt you. Good. Let them. Because growth isn't about applause. It's about alignment. It's about becoming the person who can handle the life you say you want. Most people quit because they want immediate recognition. They want to be seen, liked, praised. But mastery doesn't work that way. Growth happens in the dark, in the early mornings, in the late nights, in the moments when no one is clapping for you. That's where discipline is forged. That's where identity is built. If you can learn to love those quiet moments where it's just you versus you, you become unstoppable. Because now you're not driven by attention, you're driven by purpose. There will be moments when it feels like nothing is changing, when progress is slow, when it seems like no one notices your effort. This is where most people break, but this is where you must rise, because growth is happening even when it's invisible. Roots grow before results show. And if you stay consistent, if you stay focused, if you refuse to quit, you will reach a point where everything shifts. Not because you got lucky, but because you stayed committed when it was hardest. Let them watch in silence. Let them wonder what changed. Let them question how you did it. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Your results will speak. Your confidence will speak. Your discipline will speak. And one day, the same people who overlooked you will be trying to understand you. But by then, you won't need their approval because you'll have built something far greater, self-respect. So make a decision right now. Cut the distractions. Stop chasing attention. Stop explaining your vision. Instead, wake up with intention. Move with purpose. Grow every single day, even if it's just a little. Because small growth repeated consistently becomes massive transformation. And when the world finally looks your way, they won't see the struggle. They'll see the result. Focus on growth, stay silent, and let your success make the noise. Real transformation begins the moment you redirect your attention inward instead of constantly scanning the outside world. So many people unknowingly trap themselves in a cycle of comparison, watching what others are doing, measuring their progress against someone else's timeline, and feeling either inferior or falsely superior. But the truth is, as long as your focus is outward, your power is scattered. The second you shift that focus onto yourself, your habits, your mindset, your growth, you take back control. You stop reacting to life and start creating on your own terms. When you focus on others, you become emotionally dependent on things you can't control. Their opinions, their achievements, their recognition. This creates insecurity, self-doubt, and hesitation. But when you focus on yourself, something powerful happens: clarity. You begin to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, and most importantly, your potential. Instead of wasting energy wondering why someone else is ahead, you start asking better questions. How can I improve today? What can I do better right now? That shift in thinking alone can completely transform your direction. There's also a hidden danger in constantly watching others. It makes you forget your own path. You start chasing goals that don't even belong to you, trying to live a life that looks good instead of one that feels right. But when your attention is on yourself, your journey becomes authentic. You begin to align your actions with your true values, your real desires, and your unique purpose. This is where real growth begins, not in imitation, but in self-discovery. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean ignoring the world. It means choosing not to let it control you. It means building discipline when no one is watching, improving your skills when no one is praising, and staying committed when no one is encouraging you. This kind of focus builds a quiet strength, a deep confidence that isn't dependent on approval. You start to trust yourself more, and that trust becomes the foundation for everything you achieve. As you continue this journey, you'll notice something interesting. The need for validation starts to fade. You no longer feel the urge to prove yourself to others because you're too busy proving yourself to yourself. Your standards rise, your mindset sharpens, and instead of chasing attention, you start attracting respect. People begin to notice the change not because you announced it, but because it's reflected in your actions, your discipline, and your presence. And perhaps the most powerful part of this transformation is the peace it brings. When you stop focusing on others, you free yourself from unnecessary pressure, comparison, and negativity. You create space in your mind to grow, to think clearly, and to move with purpose. Life becomes less about competing and more about evolving. And in that space, you don't just become better, you become unstoppable in a way that no outside opinion can ever shake. Growth demands a level of focus that most people are not willing to commit to, And the biggest obstacle standing in the way is distraction. Every notification, every unnecessary conversation, every moment spent scrolling without purpose is quietly stealing your potential. It may not feel dangerous in the moment, but over time, these small distractions compound into lost opportunities and delayed progress. When you begin to understand that your attention is one of your most valuable assets, you start treating it differently. You stop giving it away freely and start investing it where it actually creates growth. Distractions are not always obvious. Sometimes they come disguised as comfort, staying in your comfort zone, avoiding difficult tasks, or choosing temporary pleasure over long-term gain are all forms of distraction. They pull you away from the very actions that could change your life. Growth requires discomfort, discipline, and consistency, things that distractions actively work against. The moment you decide to cut off what feels easy in favor of what builds you, you separate yourself from the majority of people who stay stuck. Protecting your energy is just as important as managing your time. You can have all the time in the world, but if your energy is drained by negativity, overthinking, or toxic environments, you won't have the strength to grow. Every interaction, every thought, and every environment either adds to your energy or takes away from it. When you become intentional about who you spend time with and what you allow into your mind, you start creating a space where growth becomes natural instead of forced. There will be moments when people don't understand your boundaries. They might call you distant, say you've changed, or question why you're no longer as available as you used to be. But growth often looks like isolation before it looks like success. Choosing yourself means saying no to things that once felt normal. It means protecting your peace even when it disappoints others. And while that can feel uncomfortable at first, it's a necessary step toward becoming the person you're meant to be. As you eliminate distractions and guard your energy, you'll begin to notice a shift in your productivity and clarity. Tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Your mind becomes sharper, your decisions more intentional, and your actions more aligned with your goals. You're no longer reacting to everything around you. You're moving with purpose. This kind of focus creates momentum, and once that momentum builds, it becomes incredibly hard to stop. Eventually, you realize that growth isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters most without interruption. It's about creating a life where your energy is directed toward progress instead of being scattered across meaningless distractions. When you protect your focus and your energy at all costs, you unlock a version of yourself that most people never reach, not because they can't, but because they never learn to guard what truly matters. One of the biggest traps people fall into is the constant need for validation, waiting for someone to approve, applaud, or acknowledge their efforts before they feel worthy. It becomes a silent dependency where your confidence rises and falls based on other people's reactions. But the truth is, the moment you rely on validation, you give away your power. Real strength begins when you no longer need permission to believe in yourself, when your actions are driven by purpose instead of approval, and when your confidence is built from within rather than borrowed from others. When you stop seeking validation, you free yourself from hesitation. You no longer second guess every decision or hold back because you're afraid of what people might think. Instead, you move with certainty even when the path isn't clear. This doesn't mean you'll always be right. It means you trust yourself enough to learn, adapt, and keep going. That kind of self-trust is rare, and it becomes a powerful force that pushes you forward while others remain stuck waiting for reassurance. Results, on the other hand, don't argue, don't explain, and don't seek attention. They simply exist when you consistently work on yourself, improve your skills, and stay committed to your goals. The outcome becomes undeniable. You don't have to convince anyone of your growth because it becomes visible in everything you do, your discipline, your mindset, your achievements. People may doubt you in the beginning, but results have a way of silencing skepticism without you ever saying a word. There's also a deeper level of peace that comes when you let go of the need for validation. You stop overthinking every move, stop worrying about how you're being perceived, and start focusing entirely on your progress. Your energy is no longer wasted on trying to impress others, it's invested in becoming better. This shift not only accelerates your growth, but also makes the journey more fulfilling because you're no longer performing for an audience, you're evolving for yourself. As you continue down this path, you'll notice that people's opinions start to matter less and less. Criticism won't shake you as easily, and praise won't distract you from your focus. You become grounded, steady, and clear about who you are and where you're going. This emotional independence is what allows you to stay consistent even when external support is absent. And in a world where most people are easily influenced, that kind of stability sets you apart. Eventually, the same people whose validation you once sought will begin to recognize your progress. Not because you asked them to, but because your results will demand attention. And by that point, you won't need their approval anymore. You'll have something far more valuable, self-respect built through discipline and action. Your journey will speak louder than any words ever could, proving that when you focus on becoming, recognition naturally follows. True progress has a quiet nature to it. It doesn't seek attention, it doesn't demand applause, and it certainly doesn't need to be announced. In a world where people are constantly showcasing every step of their journey, it's easy to confuse visibility with growth. But real transformation happens away from the spotlight in moments that no one sees and no one praises. It's built in discipline, repetition, and consistency, not in posting, talking, or trying to prove something. When you understand this, you stop chasing attention and start chasing improvement. Showing off creates a false sense of achievement. It gives you the illusion that you're moving forward when in reality, you might just be performing progress instead of making it. The more you focus on being seen, the less you focus on becoming better. Energy that could be used to sharpen your skills or build your mindset gets wasted on maintaining an image. But when you remove the need to display your journey, your focus becomes sharper, your work becomes deeper, and your growth becomes real. Silence is where discipline thrives. It's in those early mornings when no one is watching, in the late nights when distractions are at their peak, and in the moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. These are the times that shape you. These are the moments where character is built. And because no one sees this process, it forces you to rely on something stronger than attention. It forces you to rely on commitment. This is what separates those who talk about success from those who actually achieve it. There's also a powerful advantage in moving silently. You avoid unnecessary pressure and opinions. When you constantly share your plans or progress, you open the door for judgment, doubt, and negativity from others. But when you stay quiet, you protect your vision. You give it space to grow without interference. You allow your ideas, your goals, and your habits to develop naturally without being influenced by outside noise. This kind of focus creates a stronger, more resilient foundation for success. As you continue to build in silence, something interesting happens. Your confidence starts to come from within, not from external reactions. You no longer need people to notice your effort because you can feel your own progress. You can see the changes in your mindset, your discipline, and your results. This internal validation is far more powerful than any praise because it's stable, consistent, and completely under your control. And when the results finally show, they speak louder than anything you could have said along the way. The progress that was built quietly becomes impossible to ignore. People will see the difference, not because you told them, but because it's evident in who you've become. And that's the real reward of silent growth. It's not just about achieving success. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. Discipline isn't something you suddenly wake up with one day. It's something you earn moment by moment, especially when no one is watching. It's built in the quiet hours, in the decisions that never get noticed, and in the choices that feel uncomfortable but necessary. Most people think discipline comes from motivation, but motivation fades quickly. Discipline, on the other hand, is forged in those unseen moments when you choose to keep going even when every part of you wants to stop. That's where the real transformation begins, far away from applause, deep in personal commitment. The uncomfortable moments are the ones that test who you really are. It's easy to stay committed when things feel good, when energy is high, and when results are visible. But what about the days when you feel tired, distracted, or discouraged? What about when progress feels slow or non-existent? That's where discipline is truly built. Every time you push through discomfort instead of avoiding it, you strengthen your ability to stay consistent. You're not just completing a task, you're training your mind to become stronger than your excuses. There's something powerful about doing hard things in silence. When no one is there to praise you or hold you accountable, your actions become a reflection of your true character. You're no longer driven by external pressure. You're driven by internal standards. This is where discipline becomes part of your identity, not just a temporary effort. You stop relying on how you feel and start relying on what you've decided. And once you reach that point, your consistency becomes unstoppable because it's rooted in who you are, not in what's convenient. Discomfort is often misunderstood as something to avoid, but in reality, it's the gateway to growth. The tasks you resist the most are usually the ones that matter the most. Whether it's waking up early, staying focused, or pushing past mental limits, these moments feel difficult for a reason. They're stretching you beyond your current version. And every time you lean into that discomfort, instead of running from it, you expand your capacity. You become stronger, more resilient, and more capable of handling bigger challenges. As you continue to embrace these unseen, uncomfortable moments, you'll begin to notice a shift in your mindset. What once felt difficult starts to feel normal. What once required effort starts to feel automatic. That's the power of discipline. It turns struggle into routine. You no longer debate whether or not you should do the work, you just do it. This level of consistency creates momentum. And that momentum builds confidence because you start trusting yourself to follow through no matter how you feel. Eventually, the results of this quiet discipline begin to surface. People might see your success and assume it happened quickly or easily, but they won't see the countless moments of discomfort that built it. They won't see the days you showed up when it was hard, the times you chose growth over comfort, or the effort you put in when no one was watching. But that's the beauty of it. Discipline doesn't need recognition. Its rewards are built into the person you become, someone who can handle challenges, stay consistent, and keep moving forward regardless of circumstances. In today's world, attention has become a currency, and many people spend their lives chasing it without even realizing the cost. Every post, every action, every decision starts to revolve around being seen, liked, and acknowledged. But the problem with seeking attention is that it's temporary and unpredictable. You might have it today and lose it tomorrow. When your focus is built around something so unstable, your sense of direction becomes weak. The moment you shift away from chasing attention and start building purpose, everything changes. You stop living for reactions and start living with intention. Attention pulls you outward, constantly making you look at how others perceive you, while purpose pulls you inward, forcing you to discover who you truly are. When you're focused on attention, your decisions are influenced by trends, opinions, and external approval. But when you're driven by purpose, your actions are guided by meaning, values, and long-term vision. This shift is powerful because it aligns your energy with something deeper than momentary validation. You're no longer trying to impress people. You're trying to fulfill something that actually matters to you. There's also a major difference in how these two paths feel. Seeking attention often leads to anxiety, comparison, and pressure because you're constantly trying to maintain an image. You worry about how you're being perceived, what others are thinking, and whether you're doing enough to stay relevant. Purpose, on the other hand, brings clarity and focus. It gives you a reason to wake up, a direction to move in, and a sense of fulfillment that doesn't depend on anyone else's opinion. It grounds you, even when things around you feel chaotic. Building purpose requires patience and honesty with yourself. It's not always glamorous, and it doesn't provide instant rewards. In fact, it often requires you to work in silence, to make sacrifices, and to stay committed even when no one is noticing. But this is where real growth happens. Every step you take toward your purpose strengthens your identity, sharpens your focus, and builds a foundation that can't be easily shaken. Unlike attention, which fades, purpose grows stronger over time. As you continue to focus on purpose, your priorities begin to shift. You start valuing progress over popularity, depth over display, and consistency over quick recognition. You become more selective with your time and energy because you understand their value. Distractions lose their power over you because they no longer align with what you're trying to build. This level of clarity allows you to move with confidence, knowing that every action you take is contributing to something meaningful. Eventually, something unexpected happens. The attention you once chased starts coming to you naturally, not because you're seeking it, but because people are drawn to those who have direction, discipline, and purpose. Your work begins to speak for itself, and your presence carries a different kind of weight. But by that point, attention is no longer your goal. It's just a byproduct of the life you've built. And that's the real shift when you stop chasing attention and start building purpose. You don't just change what you do, you change who you become. In a world that celebrates quick wins and overnight success, it's easy to believe that instant recognition is the ultimate goal. People want to be seen, praised, and rewarded immediately for their efforts. But the truth is, lasting success is never built that way. It's built through consistency, the small, repeated actions that seem insignificant in the moment but create massive results over time. While recognition may come and go, consistency stays with you, shaping your habits, strengthening your discipline, and building a foundation that cannot be easily broken. Instant recognition can be deceiving because it gives you a temporary high without guaranteeing long-term growth. You might feel successful for a moment, but without consistent effort behind it, that success quickly fades. On the other hand, consistency may feel slow and even frustrating at times because it doesn't always come with immediate rewards. But what it does give you is progress, real measurable progress that compounds over time. Every day you show up, even when you don't feel like it, you are building something far more valuable than attention. You are building reliability within yourself. Consistency also builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. When you repeatedly follow through on your commitments, you begin to see yourself as someone who is dependable and disciplined. This self-trust becomes a powerful motivator because you no longer rely on external validation to keep going. You trust your process, you believe in your effort, and you understand that results will come if you stay committed. This internal confidence is far stronger than any praise because it doesn't disappear when the spotlight fades. There will be moments when it feels like your efforts are going unnoticed, when you're putting in the work but not receiving the recognition you hoped for. This is where most people give up. They mistake the lack of immediate feedback as a sign that what they're doing isn't working. But this is exactly where consistency proves its value. It teaches you to keep going even when there's no applause, to stay focused even when progress feels invisible, and to trust that your efforts are adding up behind the scenes. Over time, Consistency creates momentum. The small actions you repeat daily begin to stack on top of each other, leading to breakthroughs that seem sudden but are actually the result of long-term effort. What once felt difficult becomes easier, what once felt slow becomes faster, and what once felt impossible becomes achievable. This is the quiet power of consistency. It doesn't just move you forward, it transforms you into someone capable of achieving more than you once believed. Eventually, recognition does come, but by then, it's no longer what drives you. It becomes a byproduct of the work you've consistently put in. People will notice your growth, your discipline, and your results, but they won't see the countless days you showed up when it was hard. And that's the difference. While others were chasing quick attention, you were building something real. Consistency gave you what instant recognition never could: a strong foundation, lasting progress, and a version of yourself that is built to succeed long term. Growth is rarely visible in the moment. Most people expect to see immediate changes and tangible results, and when they don't, they feel discouraged or question whether their effort is worth it. But the truth is, transformation often happens beneath the surface, quietly, invisibly, like roots growing deep underground before a tree breaks through the soil. Every choice you make, every habit you practice, and every small step you take contributes to a larger, unseen change. Even when you can't measure it today, your growth is accumulating, building momentum that will one day become undeniable. The frustration of invisible growth is what separates those who quit from those who succeed. It's easy to give up when you don't see immediate rewards, when your progress feels slow or invisible. But growth is not about instant gratification, it's about investment. Every time you persist through discomfort, practice discipline, or push yourself beyond limits, you are adding value to your future self. You might not feel stronger or wiser right away, but over time, these invisible deposits compound into an extraordinary transformation. There is a kind of magic in trust. Trusting that your effort is not wasted, even when it feels like nothing is happening, is one of the hardest and most rewarding aspects of growth. It requires patience, faith, and self-belief. The key is to focus on consistent action rather than immediate outcomes. The small steps repeated over time shape your mindset, your habits, and ultimately your results. What seems invisible today will manifest as visible success tomorrow, because growth is cumulative and relentless when nurtured consistently. Another critical point is that invisible growth is often the most powerful kind. External results can be fleeting. Recognition, praise, or validation may fade, but the internal development that occurs quietly lasts forever. Skills, resilience, patience, and confidence are strengthened in those unseen moments. When you persist despite feeling stagnant, you are forging a version of yourself capable of handling bigger challenges and preparing for opportunities that you can't even anticipate yet. It's important to remember that growth doesn't follow a linear path. Sometimes you'll take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Sometimes progress is subtle, a small shift in mindset, a new habit forming, or a change in perspective. These changes may not be noticeable externally, but they are profound internally. Over time, these tiny improvements accumulate, eventually leading to dramatic results that feel almost sudden to outside observers. But for you, they are the natural outcome of consistent effort. The real reward of understanding invisible growth is freedom. You no longer rely on others' approval or visible results to measure your progress. You learn to value the process, to trust your journey, and to commit to yourself even when the world can't see it. This mindset allows you to stay disciplined, stay focused, and stay motivated, knowing that every effort you make today is shaping the success and the person you will become tomorrow. Growth is happening, you just have to trust it. Doubt from others can feel heavy, like a weight on your shoulders, but it doesn't have to be a burden. It can be a catalyst. People will always have opinions, judgments, and skepticism about your abilities. That's natural because your potential often challenges their comfort zones. The key is how you respond. Instead of letting their doubt discourage you, let it ignite a fire within you. Use it as motivation to prove, not to them, but to yourself, that you are capable of far more than they imagined. When people doubt you, it often exposes their limited vision, not yours. Their skepticism is rooted in what they can see, understand, or predict, but your path is your own, and no one else has the full picture of your effort, persistence, or potential. Recognizing this allows you to shift your focus inward. Their doubt becomes irrelevant unless you let it define your self-belief. Every challenge they throw at you, every doubt they voice, is an opportunity to sharpen your determination and reinforce your commitment to your goals. Doubt can also fuel your discipline. When someone says you can't, it creates a choice. Will you let that define your limits, or will you use it to push past them? The moment you make the decision to channel doubt into effort, it stops being a weakness and becomes a source of strength. You begin to associate negativity from others with action, effort, and results. Suddenly, the very thing that could have been a stumbling block transforms into a driving force that propels you forward faster than before. There's also a psychological advantage to having doubters. It keeps you humble and hungry at the same time. When no one believes in you, you rely entirely on your own standards and internal validation. You stop performing for praise and start performing for mastery. You focus on the process, the craft, and the consistent effort required to achieve your goals. In this way, doubt becomes a tool that shapes your character, builds resilience, and strengthens your work ethic in ways recognition never could. Moreover, using doubt as fuel teaches patience. People rarely understand the full scope of another person's journey in the moment. Their doubt is often immediate, while your results take time to develop. Learning to ignore immediate criticism and instead invest in long-term growth creates a mental advantage. You stay consistent, avoid distractions, and build momentum quietly, knowing that your eventual success will speak louder than any opinion ever could. Finally, when you allow doubt to motivate rather than discourage, the results are undeniable. The same people who doubted you at the start may eventually watch in awe as your achievements unfold. And the most satisfying part is that by then, you won't be proving anything to them, you'll have already proven it to yourself. Every piece of skepticism they offered has been transformed into a stepping stone, showing that when doubt is used as fuel, it doesn't limit you, it launches you toward the life you were always capable of creating. Self-respect is not something you are given by others, and is something you cultivate from within, and it starts with a commitment to your own growth. When you decide to invest in yourself, your skills, your mindset, and your habits, you send a powerful message that you value yourself enough to become better every day. This commitment is not about ego or showing off, it's about recognizing that your life is your responsibility, and honoring that responsibility builds a foundation of self-respect that no one can take away. The journey of self-improvement is often uncomfortable and challenging, but that's precisely why it builds respect for yourself. Every early morning you rise to work on your goals, every difficult decision you make to stay disciplined, every time you push past doubt or fear, you reinforce your own worth. Self-respect is born in these moments of action, not in idle intention. It grows quietly, layer by layer, as you consistently prove to yourself that your life and your potential are worth the effort. Commitment to improvement also strengthens your inner integrity. When you hold yourself accountable to your growth, you no longer rely on external validation or excuses. You begin to define your own standards and live by them, rather than being swayed by what others expect or approve of. This self-alignment creates confidence that radiates outward, because people sense when someone respects themselves. And the more you honor your own growth, the less power others' opinions have over you. Self-respect is reinforced by consistency. It's not enough to work hard once or make a big gesture occasionally. True respect for yourself comes from showing up daily. Every small choice, choosing discipline over comfort, growth over distraction, purpose over idle entertainment, cements your sense of self-worth. These consistent actions create a narrative that you are someone who prioritizes your own development, and that narrative forms the backbone of self-respect. As you continue this journey, you'll notice a shift in how you relate to others. You begin to demand more from your environment because you've set a standard for yourself. Toxic influences, negative people, and meaningless distractions no longer hold power over you. Self-respect creates boundaries naturally, because when you honor your own growth, you refuse to settle for anything that undermines it. This protection of your energy and focus becomes an extension of the respect you have cultivated within yourself. Ultimately, self-respect is inseparable from personal progress. The more committed you are to improving yourself, the stronger your sense of worth becomes. It's a feedback loop. Effort leads to growth. Growth builds confidence. And confidence deepens respect for yourself. By dedicating yourself to consistent improvement, you become someone who stands tall, not because of others' approval, but because you have earned it through action, discipline, and unwavering commitment to becoming the best version of yourself. In the end, true transformation, growth, and success are not about being seen, praised, or validated by others. They are about the work you do quietly, consistently, and intentionally every single day. When you focus on yourself, protect your energy, embrace discomfort, and commit to your own improvement, you build a foundation of discipline, resilience, and self-respect that no one can shake. Results, recognition, and admiration naturally follow, but the real power comes from knowing that your progress is driven by purpose, not by the opinions of others. By staying patient, persistent, and committed, you create a life that speaks for itself, proving that the most profound growth always happens in silence, fueled by your own dedication and unwavering focus.